Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our webcast today for a conversation and presentation with Joe Pulichino. Our topic today is essential leadership skills for L&D professionals. I'm Brenda McNabb, the VP of Service and Development for Clarity Consultants, and we'd love to know where you're joining us from today. If you're so inclined to put your geographical location in the chat, that's always fun to see. I'm in San Jose, California, and Joe is joining us from Freeland, Washington. And I also want to just give a few instructions here. If you've got questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat at any point during the presentation and conversation. And we will try to get to as many as possible. If not, we'll hit some of them up at the end. And with that, I would just like to introduce our guest today, Joe Pulichino. Joe, how are you?
Great, Brenda, thanks. It's great to be here with you and all the attendees.
Well, we're thrilled to have you as well. And I just want to say that we've had the pleasure of working with you, Joe, as a client and as a consultant, and
Right.
it's been outstanding. So we're thrilled to have you here today. I also want the audience to know that you offer a suite of trainings on LinkedIn Learning. And I was looking at the stats, and over 150,000 people have taken advantage of your courses. So
Hard to
that's
believe.
really impressive. So we'd certainly like to hear a little bit about your background before we dive into the presentation today. I know you're going to bring up some slides.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Actually, thanks for mentioning the LinkedIn Learning courses. The topic we're going to talk about today is actually built off of one of the courses. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we did that. But what I'd like to do first is just share my screen, and then I will do a proper introduction of myself. Okay, let's see. Desktop 2, share. And you should be seeing my first slide, right?
It's looking good.
Okay, good. And I can see my slides and notes, so we're ready to go. So again, I'm really thrilled to be here. It's an honor. I want to thank you, Brenda and Clarity, for this opportunity and for all the work that we've done together. I really love working with you guys. And I want to really thank the audience for showing up, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and hear our conversation and join in our conversation with your questions and comments. A special thanks too for any of you out there who have actually taken the Essential Leadership Skills course and decided you wanted to come in today and hear more, ask questions, and participate generally. So if we were in a live session, I might try to figure out who you all are and what roles you have, but I'm assuming that many of you are L&D professionals. You're at some point in your career. Maybe you're already in a management role and you're looking to hone your leadership skills as you move up the ladder, so to speak. Maybe you're an individual contributor who's thought a lot about maybe wanting to be a manager and you have aspirations in that regard. Maybe you're coming from another discipline entirely, like HR or sales, and you've been starting to manage programs in your organization, and you're tuning in for that reason. So, whatever your story is, what I can tell you is that been there, done that. I've cut across all of those things as an L&D leader, and rather than go through my full background, I want to share a couple of key points, key stories of my background, of how my journey led us to where we are today here in this webinar. So I started my career as a teacher at Rutgers University. I taught writing and American literature. And at the risk of dating myself more than my LinkedIn profile already does, I want to tell you about the technologies I used in my teaching role. It was a blackboard, not a whiteboard, a blackboard with chalk. I did have different colors chalk and erasers, of course. And whenever I wanted to give my students a handout or a quiz, I used to have to use an IBM Selectric typewriter to type out a sheet that had like carbon copy stuff on it and run it through a mimeograph machine so I could produce the handouts. And I wonder how many of you even know what a mimeograph machine is at this point. Haven't seen those in a while. I bring that up because it was the first lesson for me, really, survey that continued to grow and grow over the years about the use of technology in learning. And I would say one of the most key essential skills you need as an L&D professional is to understand that technology is there to serve the way that people learn and not the other way around. And this is an important point, because if you maintain that point of view, you're going to garner a lot of respect because of the way that you'll be able to build your programs around the real true need of the learner. Anyway, after a few years of being a teacher there, I went and decided to join corporate America. And I landed, believe it or not, I landed my first job was as a manager. And the reason why that happened was because during the interview, the hiring manager said, well, you know what, all you've really ever done has been a teacher. Why do you think you can come in here and be a manager? And I gave this great explanation of how being a teacher was a lot like being a manager. You know, you had to give assignments, and then you had to, grade the results and do performance. And, I made up a lot of other things that are really true about how teaching and education is a lot like about management. And what I've learned over the years, and this is going to be part of what I talk about today, is that our experience as educators, as teachers, as learning and development professionals, has already given us a lot that we need to be great leaders. And so I always encourage people, even if you're still, you're in a K through 12 teacher and you want to switch careers, a lot of what you already know how to do is perfectly suited for being an L&D professional in a corporate environment, and certainly being a manager. Anyway, I went on from there, and as I said before, I've had many different roles, including roles as executive or a leader in disciplines other than L&D, like marketing and sales. So I had some experience sitting on the other side of the table and seeing what learning and development looked like from the functional areas I was in, and what it looked like from the executive perspective. So all of that, is what I've been bringing to the table. I've been doing these LinkedIn Learning courses, and that's what led me here. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about how that came about as a segue into the skills that you want to focus in and drill down on to become a better leader. Okay, sound good, Brenda? We good to go
It
forward?
sounds good. I'm so curious about what you were teaching, what you focused on when you were an educator, though.
Well, I
If
was
you,
there to teach
just
people how to
curious.
write college papers so that they could do well in all their other classes. A beginning, a middle, and an end, and proper research, and all those kinds of things. And then on a sidelight, I used to teach American literature as well, which was the more fun course to teach. So,
Fascinating. Thank you.
yeah, and actually it came in handy because later on in my career, I actually taught high school in China as sort of a diversion from my career progression. I wanted to take a little time out and get back to my roots as a teacher. And I spent 2 years helping Chinese high school students preparing to come to school in the United States. So always, once a teacher, always a teacher, I guess.
Yeah.
And here
Well,
we
your
are
story's,
today.
yeah, your story is very similar to so many people that we work with who started out as educators and moved into corporate world. So yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
excited to have you dive in.
Okay, so let's go. So I want to start first by talking about why L&D leadership matters so much now, and why we even produced a course on this topic. So as you probably know, we're living in an era where the ability to learn and adapt is probably more critical than ever. The technological innovations that come at us, especially in the last year and a half, AI is upheaving everything that we know. I mean, if you go on the internet and every day there's another webinar or webcast about the use of AI in learning and development. Workforce expectations have dramatically shifted. We have the so-called 5-generation workplace, and we have people who are really much more interested in learning and development as part of the benefit of their job function. So a lot of different workplace, people working from home is another one, but a lot of different workplace expectations that we have that harken back to learning as a need. And businesses become more complex between globalization and many other elements. We find that learning and development has really come up in its importance to the whole organization. It used to be that training was the last thing anyone thought of. And, people would see the training people coming down the street and they'd cross the street so they wouldn't have to talk to, and we were just
Yeah,
ordered,
yeah.
and when the budgets were cut, we were the first to go. But that's really shifting. And part of it, we noticed part of it, LinkedIn did, when they saw a tremendous increase over the last several years of management positions for learning and development. 20 years ago, you'd be hard pressed to find a director of learning and development. And now go look at the websites and there's job openings all over the place. Well, LinkedIn found from their clients, on the recruiting side, they said, a lot of our customers are complaining that their learning and development professionals don't know basic fundamental leadership. And we'd really like to get a course going on that. So I said, they came to me and said, would you be interested in working with us on developing a course like that, since you have had L&D leadership and other domain area leadership skills? I said, sure, be happy to do that. And so what we did first was a proper needs assessment, which took the form of reviewing a few hundred job postings, actual job postings on LinkedIn and elsewhere, that we parsed through. It was kind of like a keyword search. We parsed through and said, what are the skills that hiring managers are actually looking for? And we did a whole big analysis and Excel spreadsheets all over the place. And we wound up finding that there were two key takeaways. One was most of these job postings were looking for, in one hand, what we might call core leadership skills. In other words, the kind of skills that any leader in any area would need to have. And then also L&D specific leadership skills, where you needed to be able to lead and manage certain L&D types of functions. And those combined together made up the job postings for, a good many of these jobs. So we filtered down and we sorted it out. I applied my experience to sort of validate some of what we were getting. We talked to other L&D leaders to see what they thought. And we came up with 7 core leadership skills essential for L&D, and also 4 domain areas where you needed to build your management skills beyond just what you knew as an individual contributor. So would you like to see the
Yes, the big
skills?
reveal on the 7.
Okay, here we go. So here they are. Come on, slide, move forward. There we go. So 7 core leadership capabilities for L&D professionals. Now, you may, when I go through these, say, there's some you're missing here, or I don't know whether some of these really would be included. That's okay. This is just we took a shot, and we wanted to condense it down to what we saw was most prevalent in the job postings. And here's what we came up with. And what I want to challenge you to do is think of these as 7 capabilities that are interconnected. They're not sort of standalone. It's like, and that's why I have a slide here with the cogs and the wheels. Think about it's a well-oiled machine with each one driving the other one forward. So, when business acumen, for example, informs your strategic thinking, and strong communication skills support your project management, you can create, a very powerful momentum in your ability to contribute at the executive level in your organization. The synergy of these capabilities, what elevates L&D from being a support function to really being a strategic driver. So understanding how these capabilities work together is really important. I'll just touch on each one of them briefly. And what I invite you to do as I do this, think about, do like a sort of a assessment of yourself. How much do I know about these? How important would it be for my organization if I knew more about them? And what would I need to do to sort of come up to speed on it? And sort of that's what I want you to be thinking about as I go through all of them. So let's start with business acumen. So business acumen is about understanding the broader business context in which your organization operates. It's about knowing the industry trend, the market dynamics, and being able to articulate how L&D initiatives contributes to the organization's success in those terms, in the terms of business. So don't isolate yourself as a learning and development geek. Become a real student of your organization's business. That's some advice I got from a CEO that I worked for at one point. He says, I joined the company. I didn't really know anything about what the company did. They hired me for my L&D expertise. And he said, What I want you to do is become a student of our business, learn our business. And that's so important because it allows you to talk in a way to the other executives who are your peers in a way that gives you credibility. And that's what allows you to drive the proper learning that you want to do, that allows you to make sure that technology is used in the service of learning, that your management skills come to the fore. Okay, communications and collaboration. No surprise here. Effective communications, strong client relationship skills. These help you navigate the organization and help you deal effectively with the key stakeholders who don't know anything about what you do. So being able to build presentations, write proposals, write reports, business plans, and taking a consultative approach to getting things done is a key leadership skill that you need. Human resources. In a lot of organizations, learning and development is part of human resources, and that's fine. Sometimes it's not. But as an L&D leader, you need to know about your employee population. What are the skill sets that they have? What are the skill sets that they need? And so you have to be able to put a little bit of an HR manager hat on in order to really know how what you're doing is servicing the strategic talent management and human capital management of your organization. Next, number 4, strategic thinking. Setting strategy and vision for the L&D function, aligning with organizational goals, supporting long-term business objectives. Here's something that I really want to impress on you. So many times in L&D, we're asked to build programs, and we build these programs, and they have a very short-term, limited life cycle. And they come, and they're there, and then they go. And we lose out on the opportunity to build programs that are really sustainable over time because we don't think about how will this program play out after its initial pass onto the next year and the next year. And its ability is to start thinking about the programs you develop in that way. That's going to make all the difference in the programs, in the success of the programs that you run, but also in the credibility that you have with your peers. Okay, project management, no surprise there. One of the big downfalls of learning and development is not delivering on time, not delivering on budget. You have to become a Jedi master in project management with learning and development. Because there's so many pitfalls. They change their mind about what they want. A new audience has to be brought into the picture. The SMEs are insisting on delivering content that's far beyond the performance requirements. And all of this is under the pressure cooker of getting it in your LMS and out to the audience. And you got to become really good at this. Budgeting and finance, obviously. So often training is the first to get the axe. Training is the last to get considered when budgets are being prepared. You got to know your stuff and be able to talk to the financial managers who are your colleagues and peers in a way that shows that you know how to deliver value and you know how to budget properly to get that value. And then finally, professional skills. This was like kind of a catch-all, like potpourri category, where we found a lot of and what we did was we organized around professional skills. What we mean by this is like things like conflict resolution skills, root cause analysis, problem solving, emotional intelligence, time management, all the sort of professional development skills that leaders pick up along the way by experience or by training that would that allow them to really function as leaders. So that's our final category. So any questions, any comments, thoughts along the way?
Well, I'm seeing in the chat that a lot of people are saying like, yeah, this is definitely resonating with a lot of people. It does strike me as something that one would gain a lot of this working for a smaller firm. I know a lot of our clients are Fortune 500 clients, but I'm thinking back on my early experiences working for companies where I had to touch on all of these things. And it's a great opportunity in smaller firms to get a lot of exposure that way. But no, that's a lot.
That's a great point. And I'm going to come to this point later in the presentation, but I'll bring it up now because a lot of this is about, the so-called cliche of you want to get your seat at the table, right? And too often we think about, well, when we think about that, we mean the big executive suite with the CLO and the CEO and all that stuff. But you know what? There's many tables in an organization, and there's tables in a smaller organization, and a table is a table and a seat is a seat. So even if you're just starting out, think about taking on your seat as a table from the standpoint of these 7 skills, no matter how big or small it is or where it is in your organization, because that's going to, exactly to your point, Brenda, that's going to give you the opportunity to hone these skills as you go along. They don't just get developed overnight by taking one course. This is a journey that you're embarking on through months and years and even decades of skill building and knowledge-based development. So, a table is a table and a seat is a seat, and always remember that. All right, now that takes care of the core leadership skills. And business acumen is often the one that people cite as the most surprising one to have. We just don't, it's just not top of mind to say, oh, yeah, I actually have to learn about the business we're in. Yes, you do. And you need to be able to talk about it. So become a real student of your organization's business and speak that language, speak their language so that they'll understand what you're talking about.
A quick question, a couple of quick questions here. I mean, it sort of brings me to the phrase of creating a learning culture within organizations. And I just wonder what an L&D leader's role is in creating a learning culture. Because if you're going to learn about the business, you have to have incentives, or you have to exist within a culture where that is, approved of, is recommended. And then that also dovetails into coaching and mentorship. Maybe you're going to talk about that later, but it just came to mind right now.
No, let's bring that up right now because it's a good example. I think as you're hinting at, right, as you're suggesting, is that when you have these leadership skills, you become the key participant in developing of the learning culture. Many organizations are focused on what's the culture of organization. And a subset of that is that within that larger organizational culture, do you also have, is like one of the pillars, so to speak, culture of learning. And I have a slide on that here somewhere. Here it is. So is there, and you as an L&D professional have a really important role to play because you understand learning. And you understand the sort of the fundamental nature of learning as core to everything. And often the difference between a company that has a culture of learning and one that doesn't is that they're not thinking about learning and development as part of the everyday ongoing experience of their employees and leaders and managers. They're still thinking of it as the course catalog and the LMS delivery system, and that's the end of it. And you have an important role to play. And here's 5 things that we've learned from our research here that the learning and development leader can do to support the development of a culture of learning within their organization as part of the big picture of the big picture culture. And here they are. Inspire senior leaders to go out and promote the learning as a core value. So if you can get your key leaders to go out and talk about this and represent it and demonstrate it, that's step number 1. Number 2, always make sure that in all the programs that you're developing and all the courses that you're designing, that you're making sure that there's an element of psychological safety in which people really feel comfortable and included and able to speak up and experiment and fail, because that's key to how learning really happens. And if people are afraid to fail, they're not going to be capable of succeeding. And you got to build that into it. Personalized growth opportunities. It's so important that although it's of course important that people are trained to do their jobs, it's also important that they have opportunities to grow personally and professionally as part of their life in the company. I've seen time and time again how people learning things that might not necessarily have anything to do with their specific job role actually makes them better in their job. When you learn something over here the learning process that you go through helps you to learn over here. So it's always important to stand up for personalizing growth opportunities, embedding learning into workflows, making sure that whatever programs you design and deliver, it's finding its way into the way that people are working, and they're using it as they work. And finally, to measure and celebrate learning, measure successes, celebrate successes, make sure people know that learning has a positive contribution to make, and that it's part of the company's values, and as a result, part of the company's culture. So that's
Yes.
some of the highlights for how we can operate as supporters of a learning culture.
And I'm seeing this as, there's a lot of personal responsibility in making this kind of a choice, because even if a company provides those opportunities, or one could just spend some time on LinkedIn every day to better understand the trends in your industry, for example. So there's a lot of personal responsibility that goes into contributing to
Absolutely.
your culture of learning. So very
Absolutely.
interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let me, I said at the beginning that we had these 7 core leadership principles, and then we also discovered that there were 4 kind of knowledge domains, is what we wound up calling them, that are specific to L&D. And this is important for thinking, because people come to L&D leadership and management from different avenues. Maybe they're an instructional designer, or maybe they're an instructor or a facilitator. Maybe they're an learning technologist, or maybe they're from a completely different discipline like HR, and they're moving over into
Mhm.
or maybe they're, like we said before, they're coming from K through 12 or higher education, and they're moving into the corporate world. So what we did was said, well, regardless of what your particular individual contributor domain was, here's how you have to broaden your horizons to cover these 4 domains. And here's what they are. Um, so, uh, so first of all, organizing resources and managing programs, and those are the first 2, sort of, so to speak. So by organizing resources, I mean you have to be good at organizing how your team, your direct reports, your partners, your consultants are going to get the job done. And do you need to organize a centralized learning department, or are you going to be responsible for running a decentralized learning department? And there's a number of different org structures that we see out there. You have to know what they are, and you have to know how to evaluate your particular mission so that you organize your resources in accordance. Secondly, managing programs. You need to know how to manage programs so that they're delivered on time, they're delivered to the right audience, and most importantly, I mentioned this before, they have a life cycle that is sustainable. Because there's nothing worse than investing a lot of money in programs that are one and done, and people have forgotten about it, before the ink is dry. You want to be able to manage so that it's really a sustainable part of the business going forward. So those are just 2 of the first key domains. Then secondly, there's the whole set of domains around designing and delivering engaging and inclusive learning experiences. Now, you might wind up in a leadership role and you haven't really been, say, an instructional designer. So you don't know necessarily about the science of learning and what it takes to motivate learners or engage learners, or how to make sure that your learning programs are inclusive from, say, an accessibility standpoint. And you may not even know much about how the ADDIE or the SAM instructional design methodologies work and how you need those for project management. But if you have a team of instructional designers or you're working with vendors who supply industrial design, you need to know about these things in order to hold them accountable and manage to the objectives. So that's another domain area that is important. And then finally, the whole area of analyzing needs and evaluating results. And this gets into the whole idea of how you're going to use things like the Kirkpatrick model to, first of all, analyze what the learning need is, make sure that your subject matter experts are giving you content that supports those needs, not too much, not too little, just the right amount, and that you're able to design programs where you can evaluate results from the learner's reaction, from the ability to test their knowledge, from how they're applying it to their jobs, to how it impacts the business. So these are the areas that you need to be good at um, as a manager, knowing kind of what your organization is capable of doing and how it delivers the results that you've set up your organization to do.
Now, I think you're going to share some more about the metrics and how to look at success later on. Don't want to take you off this trajectory here, so we look forward to
Okay.
hearing about that
Well,
as well.
actually, would you like to hear more about one of the organizing resources challenges I faced? I can tell a little story about that.
Yeah, was this the one with the merger
Yeah.
that we were talking about? Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. Let me,
That's
if you don't
great.
mind, I'll share this story. And this relates to the whole organizing L&D. So this is a real world example from a major corporate merger that I was involved in. I was one of learning and development managers at one of the major companies, and it was really it came down to one company had a very centralized organization. You know, like everything was in the HR department, and all the instructional designers, all the facilitators, all the LMS, it was all there. The other one company, the one where I work, was completely decentralized. In other words, there wasn't a centralized function. The sales organization had their own learning and development group, customer support had theirs, engineering had theirs. Well, these two companies came together, and the clash could have really derailed the merger's success, because so much was going to depend on the learning that needed to happen for everyone to come up to speed on each other's operations and products and whatnot. So you know, the success of the merger itself came down to these four critical factors that, you know, you would need to apply as you think about organizing learning and development. So first of all, stakeholder communication and engagement. So you have to know what your stakeholders are expecting and what they are counting on you to be able to deliver in order to even begin to think about how you're going to organize things. Secondly, in this example, we decided to create a hub and spoke model because we learned from our stakeholders that it was important to have some centralized efficiency, but we wanted to also favor local responsiveness to specific, you know, the specific training needs of different roles. Third, in order to make sure that happened, and I think this is important no matter what your situation is, a clear governance process and decision-making framework for how learning was going to be managed. Because learning and development is never successful in a silo. So even if, again, like going back to our table analogy, even if you're in the small table, you have to figure out how you're going to govern this so that all the stakeholders, all the recipients of the learning, all are involved. And finally, in order to implement this, we measured and celebrated quick wins, you know, to build momentum. So there was a lot that started where it was like, how are we going to bring these two things together? And then we realized we had to do a best of both worlds concept, figure out how that was going to work, and then build the support structures and the processes that would enable that. And it turned out to be a best of both worlds scenario in the end that worked very successfully.
Was it so like a combination of the two, or how did?
Yeah, it was a combination of the two where we looked at, okay, what are the functions of the learning and development organization that are best served by centralizing them so that we have consistency and efficiency. We take advantage of the technology as one organization. And then what are the elements that are better managed locally? So for example, to fit a training that was a sort, let's say compliance and ethics training that everyone in the company had to take, we had to make sure that because our sales organization had very specific times and places when they can do the training, the program had to be delivered to them in a slightly different way, even though the overall program was centralized and therefore, you know, it was the same for everybody.
Yeah, well, I can see how all those business skills that you talked about that are necessary for L&D leadership were very germane to coming up with a process to make it a success. I just wanted to point out that we are at about 35 minutes here. I
Okay.
know we hope to get to some questions, not seeing a lot of questions just yet, but a lot of affirmations about what you're talking about here.
Okay. Well, let's step into another one of these domain areas. Um, this is the part of things where, the core function of L&D is delivering, training or learning experience. And, there's a couple of things here that are very important. I've touched on these briefly, but it's very important to remember that you want to learn as a leader how to motivate learners. You need to study the psychology of motivation. Because if you're not really clear on how people are motivated to learn, you're not going to be a good evaluator of the programs that your teams are creating, and they will fall flat when people, log into the course and then quickly log out of the course, and then you have completion rates at 20%, and you're wondering what happened. So understanding the science of motivation is a very important element of building your skills as a leader.
So not to interrupt your flow here, but a question did just come over, which I thought
Yeah.
was interesting, and it kind of harkens back to a question that was earlier in the chat. How do you differentiate between leadership and management? I wonder if it has to do with this motivation piece, or maybe that's something you can respond to
Well,
along the way here.
I learned a long time, I think it was from Peter Drucker, the famous management consultant, definition. And he said that leadership is getting people to do things, and management is getting things done through people. And it's a subtle distinction, but it's leadership is about getting people to follow you in a certain path in order to so that they feel motivated, and it does relate to this motivation, to actually do the things that you need them to do, that they need to do in order to get things done. Whereas management is about organizing and structuring the teams and the processes and the procedures so that those things get done. So it's the difference between, on the one hand, leadership helps you motivate people to do the stuff that needs to get done, and management helps you to organize in order for people to take what they're doing to get things done and put it into procedure and processes that will allow it to happen. So for example,
Excellent.
we're gonna build a great new sales training program, and I want you as my team to get engaged and motivated to do this. And so that then when we actually sit down to start designing it and developing it, you're on board to do the work of analyzing the need and designing the prototypes and ultimately delivering it. I hope that
Thank
helps.
you. Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I hope that resonates.
It certainly does with me.
And
Yeah.
this,
And you can tell when you're in either one of those dynamics, you know.
yeah,
You can feel
another
it.
important point about it, Brenda, is that the leadership and management are sort of co-equal partners. It's not like
Mhm.
management is at this level, but leadership is at this level. It's not like a progression. It's like you're always managing and always leading when you're the boss, or when you're the lead on a project, and they go hand in hand. And there's no, it's the horse and carriage, love and marriage situation.
Well, and then this is an interesting question just came in. What are some trends to motivate the learner in online modules?
That's a great question, and yeah, really, first of all, it's a very difficult thing to do. And there's pitfalls to it.
Mhm.
So for example, a pitfall is by wanting to engage the learner, you drift over too much into entertainment, and at the end of the day, they're not really learning anything. So that's sort of a key part of the challenge here. The way what you have to be sure to do is first of all motivate the learner. You have to build into your courses giving them exercises and activities that will um, stimulate their interest in what you're going to be learning. So, for example, back a few minutes ago, when I said I was going to go through these 7 core leadership things, I asked you to think about which of those you know something about, which of those you have a deficit in, and what we need to do to get better at it. So I built in there a little motivation tick that was designed in part to stimulate your interest in what I was going to say, because now you were going to be listening for a reason, which is to see how well you knew each of the things I was going to talk about. And you had a motivation to pay more attention. Secondly, you want to do activities and exercises along the way. So, for example, we did a lot of work when I was at T-Mobile on compliance training that was built on showing people videos of stories that were enactments of situations that might occur in the workplace where an ethical decision had to be made or there was some dilemma over compliance. And what we actually did was we had learners answer questions about, what was the right thing to do. But the twist that we put on it was we made the learner feel responsible for giving the character in the story the right answer so that they wouldn't get into trouble. So we created this sort of fictional world in which you as the learner had a stake in helping your coworker. And so this made the activity more engaging because you felt
Sure.
kind of a sense of responsibility and ownership for supporting a colleague.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, another way to, engage also is, actually one of my courses is on the science of learning and how it helps in our e-learning design. But helping learners to always being generating their own connection to what you're learning, having them reflect on what they're learning and tie it to things they already know about or ways that they're going to apply it and going forward. So those are just some of the techniques that I have found useful and helpful. And I hate to do a plug now, but for more information on that topic, check out my brain-based e-learning design course, and it's chock full of ideas like this.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm glad you plugged
Thanks for
that.
that question.
And
Good question.
I appreciate everybody in the chat sharing ideas as well. So that's really good.
I hope I can see those later.
We'll get them to you.
Yeah, great.
So we sort of stopped at motivate there and went in a different direction, but
Yeah,
I think we covered a lot of this as well.
yeah. So another word
Methodical.
about inclusion, and which is an important topic, and there's another dimension of this. And one thing I want to make sure of, because I know there's a lot of controversy on the whole topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and and I understand where that controversy is coming from. I look at these topics, diversity, especially diversity and inclusion, from the standpoint of the science behind it, which is how I learned it in my work at the Neuroleadership Institute. And because the science is very clear that diverse teams perform better. They're more innovative, they're more creative, they come up with things that you wouldn't come up with otherwise. Now, diverse teams often are challenged to work together because they're different and there's sparks that fly, but those are the sparks that ignite the innovation, the inspiration. And so you want to bring diverse teams together because they produce better results. Now, diversity doesn't help produce those results if you're not being inclusive in your diversity or in the way that you organize your diversity. You have to be inclusive. And inclusion is a multifaceted thing. And one of the key things that I've learned in L&D, it's a very important element, especially if you're working in a big company, is accessibility is a key component of inclusion. And increasingly, we have workforces that have, in order to maximize the power of diversity, have included all kinds of people who have all kinds of challenges in accessing learning and development programs that we build because of technology and because of different elements of their ability to engage. And you have to be able to think about these as a leader of your organization. You know, I mentioned before, being HR smart is a part of your core leadership. Well, being able to stand up for and be inclusive around accessibility is a key function of your role. And so that behooves you to be HR smart around the diversity elements and, you know, around accessibility in your organization, but also all the technologies that are available to you that will support efforts in those areas. So it's just another example of how knowing about this and knowing how to lead on a topic like this helps you to be a better you know seat at the table leader. Let's see, what time is it? I want to cover a couple of other topics,
Yeah.
and then
We may go closer to an hour on this one. Sometimes we fall in around 45 minutes, but I think we've got some good activity here. I did want to make one comment on the inclusivity and the sparking of innovative thoughts. If organizations are a little flatter, especially when you get around the table and you've got a senior VP and you're new to the company, you know, if the premise is to always contribute when you're at the table, you know, if there are organizations that push for that claim to have a flat organization, that acknowledge everybody has good ideas, that's a part of the mantra, the core values of the company, that would probably help with that, I would think, along with the
absolutely.
inclusiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. And you know, and inclusivity is simple things too. Like, for example, the topic I mentioned before at T-Mobile, where we had to make sure we included the salespeople in the compliance training.
Yes.
And in order to include them, we had to change the way we were delivering it to them. In order, you know, but if we didn't, you know, if we weren't caring about inclusivity, you know, it would have been here, take it or leave it. If you guys figure it out. But to make the program really work, we had to have that inclusive mindset
Yeah.
was of mine. So a couple of things real quick. Running a needs assessment as a leader manager, this is really important to be able to really analyze the business performance, the performance and business opportunity, really understand what the on-the-job behaviors and skills are, and being to design and deliver to that opportunity, not necessarily to what your subject matter expert thinks, you know, what content needs to be covered, or what you think needs to be part of the learning, but really you know, how are you designing the opportunity? And that feeds into metrics that matter and you know, using the Kirkpatrick model. If you can measure ROI, that's always helpful. So a couple things because I know we're getting time to wrap up. Um, Innovation for the future. Three things that I see that are really, really important that you want to jump into: data analytics. We're getting much better, and I just skipped over that slide on metrics that matter. Our data analytics capability is really growing stronger so that we are much better able and equipped to determine, did these training programs really get results that matter for the business? Emerging technologies, we all know what's going on with AI. Really important that you stay ahead of that curve so that you can manage your teams to be able to use these technologies and experiment with them and try them out to best advantage. And finally, learner experience design. You know, we're learning an awful lot, as I said before, about learner motivation, engagement, and to really be thinking about how is the learner going to experience this as part of your design efforts. So those are three areas where I think there's a lot of game-changing innovation going on that you want to pay attention to. Let's see. You know, preparing for what's next, staying current with technology, focusing on learning principles, very important. It goes back to what I said right from the beginning about, you know, being a teacher, being an educator. Stick with the science and let that be your guiding. That's going to keep you out of trouble so many times, and also it will help you build the programs that really work and get you the recognition for that. Network with your peers and partners. Be a student of the business. Oh, create a roadmap. I haven't really talked about this too much, but start to learn how to think 5 years out. So I learned early in my career I was in some kind of training program where the facilitator talked about how generals are generals because they think 5 years ahead. And I said, well, how can you think 5 years ahead? It's not as hard as you think. And the idea isn't to create a roadmap that you're stuck with. It's to create a roadmap that helps you today. Because by thinking 5 years out, by being future focused, it's going to help you make decisions today that you can always, make changes along the way, but it's going to drive you forward. It's like that old, I don't know if you know who's the hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, who said, "I skate to where the puck is going, not to where it is right now." So if you know where the puck is going and create a roadmap for that, you're going to be ahead of the game, not just in 5 years, but today. And adopt innovations that drive value. If something seems like a shiny new thing, uh, check it out, but make sure that it actually is going to drive value in what you do.
A couple quick questions, Joe, and thank
Yeah.
you. I love the hockey analogy. I know you're trying we're going to wrap this up with your key takeaways, but if there was anything that you could advise regarding getting leadership to avoid budget cuts with learning, how do you express the value and how it's necessary, if you had to nutshell that?
Yeah, well, creating value. So the first thing is don't get caught into a trap where there's a sort of an ROI that says if we spend this much money, it's going to get us this much money back. There's too many intervening variables that have a cause and effect, and it's really hard to do that. There are ways to do it, but be careful with that and learn something about how people like the Phillips organization teach us how to do ROI. The best thing to do is to make sure that building into your program, you have a clear measurement strategy. And you'd be surprised how few people have a strategy that stops with, we're just going to measure, we're just going to do smile sheets. Did the learners like the course? Or we're going to track their test scores. And then they stop and they don't make the extra effort because it's not easy to do and because it takes that collaboration with other members, other parts of your organization to actually do the work to observe in real time, are people applying what they've learned to their job performance? And the only way to do that is really to observe it. And the only way to do that is to work with the managers and the employees and their peers who have gone through the training to give them a mechanism that's easy to report back to you that says, hey, I like the class, I learned a lot, but what's really best is that I'm better at my job. And here's the evidence of that. And that's what you have to be able to think through. Now, it starts with, to your question, Brenda, being able to tell managers, hey, look, we're going to measure how well this works and improve performance, which down the road will improve business results. Sales will go up, customer satisfaction will increase, et cetera. And then follow through and really show it. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, if you've done a good job, it will show those results and it will be worth the investment that they're making. If you don't do it at all, it becomes easy for them to take the money away from you, period.
Excellent, thank you. So what are our takeaways from today?
Okay, key takeaways. Here's my slide.
Thanks again so much, Joe.
Yeah, blend business and L&D expertise. Get them all working together. Build up those core business skills. Blend it with your L&D expertise. Remember that no table is too small. A seat is a seat, and when you have that seat, use it wisely. Champion learning culture in whatever way you can. I gave you 5 pointers that you might use in organizations large and small. Be a champion for that. Organize to get things done. Be a good manager of people and programs. Think design. Learn about design, just design in general, but think about how design works so that you can motivate, engage, include, and sustain learning across the years. Harness data and technology. And remember, it's a journey. Take the first step and just keep walking.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Joe. And we've got your information up here, a couple of your premier courses here. Wanted to let everybody know that all registrants will get a link to this recording and the slides as well. And I think there may have even been some slides that didn't come up today. But I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And the engagement is really wonderful to see. We had people from all over the country, Canada, and was just really great. Thanks for joining us today, Joe. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again on a Clarity webcast.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. And thanks, everyone. I appreciate being here with you. Thank you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll continue the conversation there.